Hi class, it's Dr. Cho. Now, I just wanted to give you a little lesson for today. When they talk about luxury, people think, expensive cars or big houses. But this is what luxury is really all about. See that behind me, that big black thing? That is a refrigerator freezer. Now, in my fridge, I've got cold beverages, and in my freezer, it's full of ice cream. That's luxury. So someday when you're thinking about, rearranging your home offices, you might want to think about it. Actually, it's really funny. When my wife and I were looking at houses once, we went into a walk-in closet and there was a fridge, and I just thought, oh, that's genius. And so we put a mini fridge in there. For those of you who are wondering what's in this office, on this side are diplomas and stuff. And actually, if you look around my home office, those are all my patents that go around and awards and things like that. And so let's get on today's lessons. I just wanted to talk about some of the assignments that you've had. Now, in the problem-solving assignment, you do what I talked about and a lot of people do, is that you think you're thinking conceptually, but what you're doing is actually going after details. You need to look at problems at a level higher up. For example, crossing the street. If you notice, the problems got harder and more complex as they went along. But a lot of you jumped on crosswalks and things like that. However, it's why do you go to a crosswalk and everything like that? So the nature of crossing the street is really about risk. It's about crossing the street, you can die. And so, therefore, if the consequences are so high, then my probability needs to be, extraordinarily good for me to want to take that kind of risk. Battleship, a lot of you talked about knowing your opponent and guessing what he'll do and stuff like that. But is mind reading really a strategy? And plus, you don't know what the nature of your opponent's going to be. That might work a little bit if you know the person very well, but if you don't. And so what Battleship really is when you really sit down and look at it, the nature of Battleship, because you're thinking about hits and misses, and what are the chances of that happening? It's a game about area. So if you were to pick a strategy, the strategy that would make the most sense is, first, pick a grid which is less than 5. Because the aircraft carrier is 5. And then once you get the aircraft carrier, go down to a smaller grid, and then a smaller grid until they're all eliminated. Now, can you still lose using that? Oh yeah, because there's still a lot of luck involved. But that's a systematic way of looking at it that's better than nothing. Basketball. You all got it right. The objective is to outscore the other team. But again, you went into the details of fitness and everything. But how do you get those points? And this is what the nature of things are. Look at all the variables and see which ones actually dominate. And what dominate in basketball is how do you get points? Well, it's based on how many baskets can I make. And how do I get baskets? It's about shooting percentage and number of shots I take. So essentially there are 2 philosophies. If I take a lot of shots, then I can get a lot of points without having good shooting percentage. Or I could have good shooting percentage and not need a lot of shots. And some of you rightly started digging into number of possessions, and now that gets into steals and rebounds. Actually, if you look at it all from this theoretical point of view, then what it indicates is that the 1986 Boston Celtics were probably the best team in NBA history. I'm a New Jersey guy, and I'm on the New York side, so I'm New York. We hate Boston, even though I went to school there. Tesla, the entire game of the electric car, and even though Tesla talks about software and everything, if you want it to be widespread, you have to get the cost down. That's the crux of every product that's mass sold. And what is the cost driven by? On the electric car, it's the battery. And that's why even though Tesla has people talk about Tesla being 10 years ahead or whatever. But I just say if somebody comes out with a better battery, that lead is going to evaporate overnight. Because right now, the biggest impediment. And a lot of you also brought up infrastructure and things like that, and that definitely plays into it too. but the primary impediment is cost right now. And in general, a lot of you get creativity. A lot of you, I was very pleased. You talked about how discussing with others and opening your head open to ideas makes you better. One thing I don't know, it drives me a little crazy is everybody is in all to this psychological stuff, like let's merge your right brain with your left brain and all that kind of stuff. And really, Asimov got it right. When I read that article, I was startled to find out he wrote it in the 1950s. But what it really does show is that good concepts are forever.